So I've been looking at a lot of people's code, and there's something that I continually see over and over, and it has to do with structure, right? So you might be at the end of the Pong beginnings tutorial, and your Pong game might work correctly, but there's just a couple of structural, stylistic changes that I would want you to make. And so if we look at this completed Pong game here, we have our global variables out here. There should be only a few, right? Not too many. And then we come into def main. In most of the tutorials that I've seen, pygame init is run as the first line in main, so I'm going to go ahead and just move that over. And then we create our screen. We have all of our paddle variables for our paddle 1, and then we have all of our paddle variables for paddle 2. So I'm going to go ahead and put here paddle 2 variables and paddle 1 variables. So you can see here in the state of my game, I haven't yet created the paddle 2 yet. I just created the surface for it. But if you did have any additional variables for paddle 2, you would want to put it right here, right? So like our move up left or move down left and our y2 and our x2, they would all go right here. And then we have our ball variables. You want to group them all together, right? So what I've seen in other people's code is that you have these guys all shotgunned, right? So all interspersed all over the place. So you want to make sure that that's all grouped tightly together according to objects. And so next, what we have after we've created all of our variables is we have our game loop, right? So this while loop is a loop that goes on forever, and during the duration of the loop, that's where our game is being played. So the first thing that should happen here in the game loop, I have here screen fill white. We should not do that. We should put that right down here, at the bottom where all the others, all the other blitting is going on. So then what we should have here is the first thing that happens is our for loop. And our for loop here is used to register keystrokes from the keyboard and from the mouse, right? And if we had controllers, it would register keystrokes from the controllers. So, right, that should all go here. And then just one thing to take note of is that the pygame.event.get returns an array with all of the keystrokes that have been registered in that 60th of a second that's represented by this iteration of the while loop. So then any keystrokes that have been made in that 60th of a second are dealt with accordingly, right? Variables are either toggled to true or false. And then once it goes through this algorithm for the up key that's been pressed, then it's going to go back into the for loop, and event is going to be the W key, and it's going to adjust the variables that are associated with the second paddle before exiting out of this for loop. Okay, so then once it finishes the for loop, that's basically we registered all the keystrokes, adjusted the variable values to what they should be, and then we jump out to here. Right. So then when we get out to here, we have our paddle adjustment, right? So our y variables for paddle 1 and paddle 2 are going to be either incremented or decremented based on the move up and move down variables, whether they are true or false. And also, we have our our conditions so that the paddle can't go off the screen. So then all of this are all about the paddle's movement, right? So then they should all be grouped together. They should happen together. And then we have our ball position. We have our move function or move method that moves the ball around, and then we have our conditions that make the ball bounce around the walls and then bounce off the paddles. So again, these should be here grouped together according to the object that they are associated with, right? I mean, our algorithm would still work if I copied this, cut it out, and I put it up here at the beginning of the loop. It would still work, right? But stylistically, we should have it all set up the way that I'm describing. So let's assume we have our paddle 1 position adjusted, paddle 2's position adjusted, the ball's position adjusted, and then lastly what we should have are the screen blitz. So everything that's printing onto the screen variable should happen at the end, and then we have our pygame flip, which prints it onto the monitor, and then we have our clock tick at the very bottom, right? So this is the format that you should have your pygame program built in. And to go over it all over again is we import whatever we need to import, whichever libraries we need to import. We have our global variables, def main. We have the variables associated with our objects and the gameplay of our game loop, such as creating the play variable. We have our while loop, which is the gameplay loop. And the top first thing in the gameplay loop should be the for loop that registers the keystrokes and takes action accordingly. Once that's finished, then we adjust our different objects, so our paddle position, the second paddle's position, and the ball's position, right? So then once that's all set up, ready to go, then we can blit everything to the screen and then flip. Right? So if you're deviating from that structure, go ahead and make those adjustments before moving forward. Thanks.